How did you get started in handball yourself?
Oh, well, many, many years ago when I was much younger, I think I was around about 14. I used to be into judo, and I'd just gone up to my local sports centre to take part in a judo session, and it was cancelled. And like sometimes we get with some clubs, no, nobody notified anybody. We didn't have mobile phones then. So I was kind of lingering about the sports centre for an hour until the next bus. So I decided I'd go down. I'm a bit of a football fan, so I thought I'll go down and watch the five-a-side football in the sports hall. And when I turned up, there was these lads throwing a ball around. So I was a bit intrigued because at school I was more a rugby player than I was a handball player. But Scottish weather didn't really agree with me in an outdoor sport. So this looked like a possibility. And a lad called Steve Welsh, who he's one of the kind of founders of the Scottish Handball Association, he invited me to just to join in. So I did, and I absolutely loved it. And from that point, I think within 3 or 4 weeks, I'd quit judo and I concentrated more on handball. Spent time in school, no bothering the teachers to try and get handball in the PE lessons. Got a lot of my mates to play, and then one of the oldest clubs in Scotland, Tri 77, was started around that time, and I was kind of one of the founder members there. So that's really how I got into it. And like I say, I've been obsessed with the sport since that point.
And tell me, how did the training camp for Team GB at SportsDock at the University of East London, how did that come about before the Olympic Games in 2012?
Well, I mean, obviously, whenever we were training back in the UK, we were at that point, because the sport then had a lot of money with funding, etc. We were getting lots of offers for training venues, but with the games being in London, it suited us to try to get training facilities in the London area just to familiarise all of the players. So we used to train at Crystal Palace. Now, this is before Copper Box was even constructed. All of the stuff was going up at that point. So we got approached about the possibility of training there, and the head coach had said, "Right, okay, no, let's go there. It's a different venue, it can be a fresh approach, and we quite like the setup of the sports complex itself, with the other training facilities that could be of access for us, i.e. this kind of strength and conditioning stuff."
Yeah.
So that was how that kind of came about, my understanding of how it came about, because obviously that had gone through the management process to the head coach.
And did you stay on campus, or was it just sort of using the training facilities there?
Well, we used the training facilities there. I think we were actually staying at that point over near Crystal Palace that way.
Yeah.
I can't recall exactly where it was, but there was a hotel that we used because it was quite central for some of the training venues that we used.
Yeah. And what did you think of the facilities? Were they what you wanted, what you needed?
Yeah, I mean, they were excellent. I mean, for our head coach at the time, who was Serbian, and the goalkeeper coach, who was Swiss, and the strength condition coach, who was Slovenian, I mean, they are used to seeing facilities of that standard constantly in their countries, But for me, growing up playing handball in halls that were no longer than 32 metres long and 18 metres wide, with rock hard floors, it was like manna from heaven for me, because seeing that size of venue with sprung wooden floor. And then, I did have when I was coach at Salford and Warrington Wolves, we did play a couple of club matches there. So it was a venue that I got quite familiar with.
That's great to hear. Now, I was very lucky during the Olympic Games. I worked with the boxing, wrestling, and weightlifting squads as a press attaché. But on one of the days, I was assigned to the Copper Box to look after Team GB women's handball. Live, it was just fantastic to watch, I've got to say. And there was a real buzz in the Copper Box. What are your memories of the teams playing there, and what the atmosphere that was there at the time? And what would you say the legacy of 2012 was?
Well, I mean, that was the key thing always for me. I mean, I was part of the men's coaching staff, but I was really the only actual UK born coach within that setup. And then obviously in the women's setup, Melanie Chowns was involved with the women's side, who you may have come across. So for us, it was always the key thing for us, we viewed this as an opportunity for the sport to actually kick on and become a true legacy sport, not just words that were used, to secure the Olympic Games. That was the way I was envisaging things going. So that was a great starting point. As soon as we knew the games were in London, for me, it was always going to be about the day after the Olympics finished.
Yeah.
But being in the copper box, I just remember, one of the times we decided after one game to walk back to the village rather than jump on the transport. And just the amount of fans that were there that had never heard of handball were stopping us on the bridge, asking us about it, where can they play? And, and I agree with what you said before. And the atmosphere in that building, no matter who was playing, it was terrific when GB were playing. But no, we were often there watching some of our opponents, and it was an electric act. I mean, it got the kind of nickname the box that rocks, didn't it? So
yeah, that's right. It was great. Yeah.
Yeah, it's tremendous for us, and to see a lot of friends and family there was good. But just the actual volume of people that came out of that arena with a positive opinion on the sport of handball was we couldn't pay for that anywhere. So that for me was a real key factor.
And did the participation numbers go up after the Olympics in 2012?
Yeah, I think I remember a statistic at the time. There was we had we just had started, I think 2 years prior to that, a national schools competition, and I think in 2012 we had 29 schools playing that nationally, and I think this year with the finals, I think they were 3 weeks ago. The finals were in Nottingham University, and we had 1,600 schools had. Through the process to get to this final four that played under 15 and under 13 schools competition. So that's a massive growth in that sense. Club handball's gone up, participation, performance pathway is now fully loaded with athletes that are picking handball as their first sport, not as it's been in the past. It was maybe a bit of a second sport, but I always remember a quote. I can't remember who said it. We were at a debrief for one of the Olympic committees, and somebody said that a UK coach had said that he believes handball should be everybody's second choice sport, in terms of team sports. So all of those kind of things, really help the sport. And we've just recently, England handball's just been given an award for its work in terms of its diversity within the sport, because many nationalities within the UK play the sport, and we're starting to see, the likes of, children that are born in the UK but maybe have Eastern European or Western European, Scandinavian parents living in the UK are now sort of breaking through into the performance pathway that we organise. So things are really looking. I think it's really quite promising. Most of the men's squad now are essentially based in Europe. So that was always a key target, because if you look at all the top nations that were at London 2012, most of their top players all play in Champions League handball clubs.
Yeah.
PSG probably in Barcelona, they're probably the most famous ones people could associate with. But all of their top players are fitted in their Champions League clubs. So one of our challenges was to get as many British players into the highest level possible for them to play. But just by the very fact they would play in Europe became almost for some semi-professional, and for one or two others, we've got professional players now playing all over Europe.
Yeah, it's interesting because at the University of East London, we had a Sporting Your Futures Day, and we introduced a lot of local school kids to multiple sports, and they had an amazing day. So your sort of aims of diversity and inclusivity very much resonate with what we're doing at the university as well, Bill. So in terms of internationally, where do Team GB, where do England, where do the home nations sit in the rankings? Have they improved since 2012 over the last 10 years?
Yeah, I mean, unfortunately for the women's programme, that kind of it faltered. After at the time, in my opinion, the women's position then was much stronger than the men's. In terms of they were more competitive than we were with the Olympic nations. But obviously when the coaching staff all left and all the funding got pulled after Olympic Games, the men's continued because we had already had a prior commitment to European qualifications that were coming up in 2013. So I ended up taking the reins for that, just basically so we could get that finished, because playing in that level of competition is quite expensive because you play home and away,
Sure.
etc.
Yeah.
But the women's one, they didn't have anything in that particular year, and then obviously we're not having any funding. We brought in a Danish coach at that point, Thomas, but it was very difficult for them to kind of get the whole squad together. Many of the players that were at the Olympic Games, had they dedicated 4 or 5 years of their life to that. Yeah. They kind of dropped out the sport, and the pipeline maybe in the women's wasn't as strong at that point as it might have been in the men's. So the men kind of overtook that a little bit, and they finished fourth in the recent emerging nations. So that's pushed their ranking up for it. No, we're still in that bottom end of it, but we're really off the bottom where we were always near the bottom for years and years. But the women, because of their success prior to the Olympics and during the Olympic Games, were higher ranked. But what they do, they combine it all, so you get your overall ranking dependent on where your male and female teams rank. There's not a separate table. So we have climbed up the rankings, but I think what you'll find, Richard, is that in the coming years, we'll really start to climb out of that bottom end of it, and a nation that's kind of competing with that middle tier of teams. We're still far away from the likes of France and Germany and Denmark, Sweden, these traditional handball countries. But, we don't often get the chance to compete with the likes of Argentina, Brazil, the African champions, Asian champions, and we can be comparable with them, over time. So I'm really hopeful for the future. And especially in the women's program, they're about to embark on their first actual official qualification tournament in it's 2 games against Turkey in November. So although it'll be a big ask of them, Turkey are quite a good handball nation. It's a starting point for them again. But they've now got their pipeline full of talented young players coming through, born 2004 down to 2003 really, down to 2006. I think there's a real pool of talent there for them.
And final question, I don't want to put you on the spot, but for someone who hasn't watched handball before, what 3 reasons would you say to them, this is why you've got to watch handball?
I think the first one, remind, is there is lots of goals. You're talking in the region on an average game, anything between 65, 70 goals per game. Teams often get into the 30 mark. The speed of the game is much improved. They've brought in a lot of new rules to keep the speed of the game consistent. So that, you're talking about a lot of powerful but fast athletes, both in the male and the women's game. And I just think, really for me, I think it's a tremendous spectator sport. I've always struggled with why it doesn't take off in the UK, because it just suits our mentality. It's aggressive, it's a contact sport, there's a lot of goals in it, and I just kind of think, Copper Box gave us that chance to showcase it, and we're getting more of our national competitions and Cup and League live stream now on YouTube. Kids have access to it, themselves via YouTube and EHF TV. And they're the 3 main things for me. I think it is a tremendous spectator sport, but it's fast, strong, and lots of goals.
Fantastic. Bill, thanks so much for your time today. It's been brilliant talking to you, and hopefully we can spread the message for you for handball by posting this on our various platforms going forward.
That'd be great. And really, thanks very much for your assistance prior to the Olympic Games and for your support now.